This is the O-Review podcast. O-Review.
Welcome to episode 4 of the Oakley review series. Today, we're going to take a look at another member of the X-Metal line. And before I go into this, I'd just like to go over what the term X-Metal actually means. It means three things. One is the overall alloy mixture of titanium that they use to make the frames. The second is just the general name for the range of glasses that use that alloy. And the third is the frame color. If you remember back to my Mars review, the sort of matte gray look or the matte, the darker frame, that's actually the X-Metal colorway frame. This is the 24K frame, and it has plasma orbitals. So if you take a look at some of the pure plasma designs, you'll notice that it's this sort of material over the entire frame. So what they did is they mismatched plasma orbitals with a 24K gold powdered ear stem and nose bridge. They also have the 24K lenses, which is a great lens, probably one of my favorites. It's really bright, it's really loud. It won't show your eyes when you're wearing it, so if you have it on, no one can see what you're looking at, which is good. As far as fit goes, they're slightly bigger than the Juliet. Not so big that they're going to fall off, although if I do have them on my head, I do find myself having to catch them once in a while because if I look back, they might slip off. So a little bit on the larger side. That's kind of what they were designed for. As far as fit around here goes, it's not that much different than a Juliet, but as far as height goes, that's really where the key comes in. Now, I don't know if I have a Juliet that I can... Yes, I do. Let's take a look. There we go. All right, so let's see how this compares to the Juliet. Okay, so here's kind of a comparison between the orbitals of the Juliet and the X-Metal 20. A lot taller on the orbitals, but when you compare them straight down, really not that much different. Now, the X-Metal 20 does have the hammer stems on all of the colorways, as opposed to the Juliet, which only had hammer stems on the polished models. So keep that in mind. The hammer stem doesn't really give you a whole lot of width either. It just sort of brings it out from your temple, so it's a little bit easier to pick up. Gives you a little bit more room, but it really doesn't affect the fit all that much. So the X-Metal 20 came in a few different colorways. There was the really loud 24K model, and then there was a more subdued X-Metal Black Iridium, which came across all the models. There was also a Plasma Ice, and there was a TiO2 model, which I'll be going over soon. And that was basically sort of like a grayed out version of this, where instead of Plasma with 24K, it was Plasma with X-Metal. So it's kind of a more subdued version. I like that one just as much. If you like being loud, these are great. If you want to keep it down a bit, the TiO2 is a perfect pair. I actually wore these pair on my wedding. I just thought they really kind of were loud, and I wanted to have something that really kind of shook up that day. So really cool model. They are serialed. My serial number is 25255, so it's kind of on the higher end. The gold model is XG with 6 digits. I also noticed that I have an A after this. Now, if you're ever looking at serial numbers on X-Metals, if you see an A after it, that's a generation 2. The first ones didn't have any letter. The second ones had an A, and the third generation had a B. Obviously, if they knew there were problems, they wouldn't have put A at the first one because then they would have just fixed the problem right away. So no letter is first generation, A is 2, B is 3. So this is obviously, they had some issues with the plasma frames, and I think there were a couple other frames that had issues, but mainly it was the plasma frame. If you want to see, I don't know if you can see this too well, but this is actually a first generation plasma frame. It's slightly different, and I'll try to get a close-up of this later, but has an entirely different feel to it. It's a lot matter, whereas this one's kind of smoothed out. But I imagine that since there's a third generation of it, that they actually found a few more flaws with this and fixed it up for a third round. I found these on half.com many years ago, and these retailed for about $325, and I was able to get them for quite a bit less, which is kind of exciting. I don't think they came in a box or the really cool X-Metal boxes, but later on I was able to get a couple of those for some other models, so I wasn't really missing out on too much. As far as durabilities goes, these things are rock solid. It's titanium, so it's really not much other metals you can use that would give you such a great durability for these pairs. I didn't really go over the parts on the Mars one, so I'll do that now. They always claim that these things are made up of 25 different components. And if you look at it, you may say, okay, you have two stems, you have two orbitals, and a nose bridge. That's, 5 right there. But actually what we have is we have an ear stem, we have the ear socks, we have orbitals, nose bombs, nose bridge. There's 2 rivets there. There's 2 flex couplers inside there. 2 screws. There's also these temple shocks here, which you can pop out. And these came in several different sizes. So let's see what I have here, if I can pop that out quickly. So there's these little unobtainium inserts you have here, which go right in the temple, and it helps determine how much give you're going to have when you close the stem. So this one is a 15, which I believe is the smallest you can get. They came in 15s, 25s, 50s, and 75s. The 75s were enormous, and they bulged right out of this, so you really probably couldn't even close it any tighter than that. I found those were sometimes useful in the Romeos because those were so huge. But really, 15s, 25s are really the max that I've ever found useful. Nice thing is you can just sort of put it into place and then close the ear stem, and that'll clamp it down nice and tight. So, like all X-metal pairs from the early days, if you flex this coupler too much, the plastic part inside would slowly stretch, and this would end up being very loose. This really isn't too loose, so I'm kind of keeping it that way and keeping it on the shelf. I don't really wear it out that often. The ear stems will loosen up over time, but these are easy. You just take a T6 Torx wrench and just tighten it up, and they'll be nice and tight, almost like new. Unlike the Mars, they don't have clamps, which is a beautiful thing. If you want to do a lens swap on this or do some customizations, what you can do is just use, again, a T6 Torx wrench here. Take that screw out. The frame will then separate a bit. You can take the lens out, put it back in, and then just tighten that back up. By default, the orbitals aren't really aligned perfectly, but the screw will help keep them in place. Also, if you look very closely, there's sort of a washer here. It's made out of unobtainium or possibly just some sort of rubber. And what that does is that helps keep some of the flex in there so the metal isn't rubbing against the metal. However, it's very important that when you take this screw out, that it doesn't fall off and get lost. Because if you put it back, it's not going to match up right away. You'll probably have a gap. You'll have metal rubbing against metal. It won't really be ideal. So, I really love these pair. These are just, early on I had a couple Holy Grails, the Leather Mars and Over the Top, and then these were another one. I was really glad to get these early on because, just one look at them. If you like loud things, you like crazy things, it really doesn't get much better than this, except maybe for the Over the Top because those are insane. But as far as pairs that you could probably wear out on a daily basis, this one is really perfect, and I love it. So these actually came out the same year as the Juliet. They came out in 1999. So first we had the Romeo, then we had the Mars, then we had the X-Metal 20 and the Juliet. It took a couple of years after that to get to the Penny, and then we had the Romeo 2 after that. So that's pretty much all I'm going to say about this one. I'm sure I'll say more about X-Metals in the future. I have a few more pairs. I got the Juliet, which I kind of went over. I'll go more into the generations of plasma. I'll go into the issues why they had generations of those. And I'd also like to, go over my Romeos, Pennies, and I have a Romeo 2. I'm still looking to get a half X and a square X at some point. Hopefully I can pick up one of those for not too bad in the future, and then I can do a review of those. Alright, so as I wrap this up, let's take a look at the future. The next pair I had was a Romeo in X-Metal Black. But I traded those in for another pair of X-Metal 20s because Oakley was running promotion, but I'll go over those at a later point. So the next one after this is my T-Wire 2.0 in titanium clear. I was really looking for a clear pair at the time, so my brother ended up getting those for a wedding present, which was kind of cool. So I will review those next time. Let's answer the trivia question from last time. The question was, what were the first 3 lens shapes for the Oakley Mumbo/M frame when it came out in 1989? The answer are the V lens, the 67 lens, and the hybrid. The hybrid became sort of a combination of those two. After that, we had the slit lens, the heater, and a couple other ones like the slash, which was a lot bigger. So let's think of something else I can ask for the next time. Okay, everyone knows that Oakley is the name of Jim Jennard's English setter, and that's what he named the company after. But what was her middle name? So what is the middle name of the English setter Oakley? If you answered that, you could have won a diamond time tank from Jim Jennard himself, which was kind of cool. But I'll leave you with that, and I will see you next Sunday. Take care.
O